Chapter 1. The Call of the Sea. Call me Ishmael, whenever I feel sad and whenever the world around me seems too dark and stressful. I go to the sea. The ocean is my cure. I decided to leave my normal, boring life on land behind. I wanted to find work on a whaling ship. I wanted to see the giant, mysterious monsters of the deep water. I traveled to Nantucket. It is a famous, windy island where the best and bravest sailors live. Because I did not have much money, I needed to find a cheap place to sleep. I found an old dark inn near the water, but the inn was completely full. The owner told me I had to share a bed with a stranger. This stranger was a harpooner named Pequod. When I first saw him in the middle of the night, I was completely terrified. His skin was covered in dark, strange tattoos from a faraway island. He carried a heavy, sharp weapon called a harpoon. But soon I realized my fear was wrong. Pequod was a quiet, kind, and truly honest man. He was much better than many people I knew on land. We quickly became fast friends and brothers. We decided to find a whaling ship together. The next day, we walked around the busy port. We found a very strange, dark ship. Its name was the Pequod. The ship looked incredibly old and sad. It was decorated with the huge white bones of whales. It looked like a floating graveyard. We went aboard and talked to the ship's officers. We signed our names on the official paper. We were now part of the crew. But the captain of the ship, a mysterious man named Ahab, was nowhere to be seen. The officers told us that Ahab was a great, brave sailor. However, they said he was currently resting in his private cabin. They whispered that he was a very strange and angry man. Looking at the dark ship, I felt a strange, cold feeling in my chest. It was like a silent warning of danger. But I ignored it. A few days later, the Pequod left the safe harbor. We sailed out into the vast, open ocean. Our great, dangerous adventure had finally begun. Chapter 2. The Captain's Secret. For many days, the Pequod sailed across the Atlantic Ocean. The sun rose and fell, but we did not see the captain. He stayed inside his dark cabin, away from the crew. The atmosphere on the ship was nervous. We talked in low voices about the man we had never met. We wondered if he was sick or simply mad. Then, one cold morning, the cabin door finally opened. A tall, strong man stepped out onto the deck. It was Captain Ahab. He looked like a giant tree that had been hit by lightning. His hair was gray, and he had a long, thin scar that ran down his face and disappeared into his shirt. He looked like a man made of stone. But the most terrifying thing was his leg. His left leg was missing. In its place, he had a white leg made from the polished bone of a sperm whale. Every time he walked, the bone made a loud, rhythmic thud on the wooden deck. It was a heavy, cold sound that we heard even in our dreams. Ahab stood on the deck and looked out at the horizon. His eyes were full of anger and deep pain. He did not care about the wind or the waves. He looked like he was searching for something hidden under the water. He was a man who lived with a dark secret, and we were all afraid to ask him what it was. One afternoon, Ahab called the whole crew together. He held up a bright, heavy gold coin. It was a doubloon from South America. He walked to the main mast and nailed the gold coin into the wood with a hammer. The loud sound of the hammer echoed across the silent ship. "Look at this gold!" Ahab shouted. His voice was like thunder. "It belongs to the man who first sees a white whale, a giant white whale with a broken fin and 3 holes in his tail. "That is Moby Dick. He is the monster that destroyed my leg, and I will have my revenge." The crew cheered. They were excited by the gold and the captain's wild energy. They wanted the prize. But Starbuck, the first officer, was worried. He was a practical and honest man. "Captain," he said softly, "we came here to hunt whales for oil, not for revenge. A whale is just a dumb animal. It is not right to hate it." Ahab laughed, but it was a cold, scary sound. "Moby Dick is more than an animal to me," he replied. "He is my enemy. He is the wall that stands in front of me. We will sail around the whole world through fire and ice until we find him and kill him." In that moment, the mission of the Pequod changed forever. We were no longer simple sailors looking for oil. We were part of an old man's mad hunt for vengeance. The ship was no longer a business. It was now a weapon pointed at the white whale. We were sailing into the unknown, led by a man who did not fear death. Chapter 3. The Mad Hunt. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. The Pequod sailed across the vast Indian Ocean and into the Pacific. We hunted and caught many normal whales. We worked hard, cutting the fat and boiling it in huge hot ovens. The ship smelled of smoke, sweat, and blood. We filled the lower decks with valuable oil, but Captain Ahab did not care about the oil or the money. He only cared about the white whale. Ahab spent his days and nights on the deck. He stared at the dark water, always searching. He never smiled, and he almost never slept. Sometimes he woke up in the middle of the night screaming. He was fighting the monster in his nightmares. His madness started to spread to the rest of the crew. We felt a heavy, dark cloud hanging over the ship. The ocean felt less like a workplace and more like a floating prison. We were sailing further and further away from safety. One night, a terrible storm hit the ship. The wind screamed, and the giant waves crashed over the wooden deck. It was a typhoon, the most dangerous storm on the sea. The sky was completely black, but huge flashes of lightning lit up the night. The thunder was so loud it shook our bones. During the worst part of the storm, strange blue fires appeared on the tips of the ship's tall masts. The sailors were completely terrified. They thought it was a bad sign from heaven. They dropped to their knees and wanted to turn the ship around. But Captain Ahab was not afraid. He stood in the middle of the storm, holding a sharp metal harpoon. The unnatural blue light shone on his scarred face. He shouted at the fire and the storm, telling them he would never give up. He looked directly into the storm and laughed. Starbuck, the first officer, watched the captain with deep fear. He knew that Ahab's mind was completely broken. Starbuck thought about taking a gun and taking control of the ship to save the crew. But Ahab's dark power was too strong. Starbuck and all the rest of us were trapped. We could only follow the mad captain deeper into the deadly waters. Chapter 4. The Warning. As the Pequod sailed deeper into the Pacific Ocean, we sometimes met other whaling ships. In the middle of the empty sea, sailors are usually very happy to see other human beings. They share news, letters, and friendly conversation. But Captain Ahab did not care about news from home. Whenever another ship came close, Ahab stood on the deck and shouted the same question. "Have you seen the white whale?" he yelled across the water. The answers he received were always full of horror and death. One day we met a ship called the Rachel. The captain of the Rachel was crying. He told Ahab that Moby Dick had destroyed one of his small boats. The captain's own young son was in that boat, and he was now lost at sea. He begged Ahab to help him search for the missing boy, but Ahab's heart was completely frozen. He looked at the crying father and coldly refused. "I will not do it," Ahab said. "I have no time to look for missing boys. I only have time for my revenge." In that moment, we knew Ahab had lost all his humanity. Later, we passed another ship called the Delight. It was badly broken, and 5 of its sailors were dead. The captain of the Delight warned Ahab to turn back. He said Moby Dick was not a normal animal, but an immortal demon of the sea. Ahab just turned his back and ordered the Pequod to sail faster. The atmosphere on our ship became incredibly tense. The ocean was completely calm and quiet, but it felt like a trap. Every man on the ship watched the water with wide, frightened eyes. We knew the monster was very close. Then, on a bright and clear morning, the silence was finally broken. A loud, thrilling cry came from the top of the highest mast. It was Captain Ahab himself. "There she blows!" he screamed, pointing at the horizon. "There she blows! A hump like a snow hill! It is Moby Dick!" The mad hunt was over, and the final nightmare was about to begin. Chapter 5. The Final Battle. The hunt for the white whale lasted for 3 long, terrifying days. As soon as Ahab saw Moby Dick, he ordered the small wooden hunting boats into the water. The men rowed hard. Suddenly, the giant whale appeared from under the dark waves. He was massive, like a mountain of white snow, covered in old scars and broken harpoons. He was not afraid of us. He was waiting. When Ahab's boat got close, Moby Dick turned around. He opened his giant mouth and bit Ahab's wooden boat completely in half. Ahab fell into the cold, dangerous water. The Pequod had to sail very close to save the captain. Ahab was wet and angry, but he refused to give up. The first day ended with a dark, silent night. The next day, the mad chase continued. We saw the whale jump high into the air, showing his unbelievable power. The small boats attacked him again. This time, Moby Dick fought back with his giant tail. He smashed the boats to pieces. Men were thrown into the flying water. During the chaos, Ahab's white bone leg was broken. He was helpless, but his hate only grew stronger. Starbuck, the first officer, begged his captain to stop. "He does not want you, Captain," Starbuck cried. "He is only protecting himself. It is madness to follow him. We will all die." But Ahab was completely blind. He told Starbuck to prepare the boats for the 3rd day. On the 3rd morning, the final battle began. The sea was angry and covered in dark clouds. Ahab got into his boat for the very last time. He ordered his men to row faster. Finally, he came close enough to the monster. "From hell's heart I stab at thee," Ahab screamed. He used all his remaining strength and threw his sharp metal harpoon deep into the white whale's side. Moby Dick felt the terrible pain. He swam forward with incredible speed. The thick rope attached to the harpoon ran out very fast. Suddenly, the flying rope tangled. It wrapped tightly around Ahab's neck. Before anyone could move or shout, the captain was pulled out of the boat. He disappeared under the dark water forever, dragged down by his own weapon and his own hate. But the white whale was not finished. He was furious. He turned his giant body toward the Pequod. The beast swam incredibly fast and crashed his heavy, solid head into the side of the wooden ship. The wood broke with a deafening sound. Water rushed in perfectly fast. The great ship began to sink into the deep black ocean. The crew screamed, but no one could save them. The ocean swallowed them all. Soon, the Pequod was completely gone. The sea was quiet and empty again, as if nothing had happened. Only one man survived the mad hunt. Me. I, Ishmael, found a wooden box floating on the calm water. It was an empty coffin, made for my dead friend Pequod. I held on to it for a whole day and a whole night. Finally, a passing ship found me and pulled me out of the water. I was the only one left alive to tell the dark story of Captain Ahab and his white whale.